It is bewitching hour. Let's see, we are missing, hey, buddy. All right. I call this meeting to order. I would ask that everyone remember to turn on your mics when you're talking so they can be heard as we are live streamed. Let's see, Mr. Coley, I think we're all here except for Commissioner Herbert. And so, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 17, which were distributed prior to the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Coley? They were approved as submitted. All right, first official action, Resolution 1469. Mr. Bolus.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I want to recognize Chris Hood, our Director of Finance, to go over with you the proposed fiscal year 23 tax equivalent payments.
Thank you, Mr. Bolus. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I present Resolution 1469 for your consideration. This resolution is a request to this board, as well as to City Council, to set for distribution the payment in lieu of taxes or pilots for the 2023 fiscal year. Start out by giving you an overview of what we're looking at today. We're looking at $33.3 million of payments to the city, county, and surrounding taxing jurisdictions for the year. This amount is comprised of amounts calculated based upon our asset values in our systems located in their taxing jurisdictions, as well as to a lesser degree the operating margins of the systems. We are up about $890,000 this year compared to last year's payment. If there is a silver lining to this, it's actually $2 million below budget. So that $2 million is comprised of the fact that we placed less assets in service this year. As you know, all the pandemic supply chain issues, we did not produce as many assets as we anticipated this year. So there is a benefit to that. The other component is the fact that Knox County reduced their tax rate this year. As everyone knows, property values in this area are way up, so the tax base was up, so Knox County was able to reduce that tax rate. We received the benefit of that. That's about $600,000 of savings for us. So we are under budget. The other thing of note is this is our first time we'll pay pilots for our fiber division. Fiber division is relatively small payment. It's about $1,100, but it will remain relatively small compared to the other divisions. As you know, our assets are located in our electric system. Fiber pays electric for those assets. So fiber asset base should stay pretty small over the tenure of the fiber division. Take a look at the governance behind these pilots payments before we talk numbers. Start out with the easiest, and that's in our water and wastewater divisions. Water and wastewater in state law is silent as to how these are calculated, so we fall back to city charter. City charter dictates that we would pay a pilot for the water and wastewater divisions to the city. Most of our water and wastewater assets are located in the city. This makes sense. That is based just upon the net asset values in those systems. So we look at the assets in the city, pay based on those, make a payment in the end of February, and that's approved by this board, and it only has to be approved by this board. Conversely, when you look at the electric and gas law in the state of Tennessee for municipalities, it's very specific as to how payment in lieu of taxes are to be structured and calculated. There are two parts. You calculate based upon the asset values in those systems, but you also calculate based upon the average operating margins in those systems. State law dictates that once these calculations are made, they're to be approved not only by KUB's board, but by statute through Knoxville City Council as our governing authority.
Hey, Chris, I think I may have misheard something. So you said with the wastewater and water, even though those are governed by city charter, when we pay our pilots, we still pay those to the jurisdictional governmental entity, right?
Only the city.
Only the city?
Only the city, yes. Okay. So the city receives all of our money from water and wastewater divisions. Okay. And that's via city charter. So now on electric and gas, as well as fiber, it would be anywhere where we would have those utility assets located. So if we're in Granger County, if we're in Union County, we pay those counties once those items are set for distribution by City Council.
So most of our wastewater and water assets are within the city limits?
Most of them are within the city anyway, yeah. All right. So last thing on the electric and gas, obviously it does take statute to set those for distribution to the other taxing municipalities. City council does that, and we do that through the resolution you'll look at in a few minutes. Those are to be paid by the end of June. All right, new division, new kid on the block, fiber. Fiber is a little bit different in the fact that under Tennessee Code, there is a specific section that deals with utility internet taxes. And with this, the statute reads that those taxes are to be calculated much like an electric division would calculate their taxes. One difference being is the fact that there is a statement in there that says that a utility should not pay more taxes than a private entity that is a fiber-bearing entity. So the Part 2, or the average operating margin, we do not calculate tax based on that because a regular a regular entity doing internet would not pay property taxes on their margins. They would only pay it on their assets. So a little bit different, but at the same time, it follows the same structure as electric in the fact that the board would approve it and also city council would approve that before it would be distributed. Now, with our fiber assets, we're only located currently in the city, and that's probably what the footprint will mostly be because our actual fiber assets are pretty small. It's more servers, it's more billing systems, it's those type of things that are sitting here in the city. We would not expand out into the outlying territories as much. So those payments would actually be set and distributed last day of June as well.
And the fiber assets are, I thought the electric division owned the fiber assets.
Electric division owns electric assets, but they own the fiber cable. Fiber pays the electric division for the use of that. Okay. So our electric assets will continue to go up okay. over time as we add fiber. However, the fiber division assets will stay pretty small. Okay. Now, the amount we pay the electric division to use those assets will go up.
Go up, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Gotcha. All right, so let's look at the breakout by division. As you would assume, KUB's largest division is the electric division. We pay about half of our pilots out of the electric division. This year, that represents about $17.2 million, up a little bit from last year's payment, up about $400,000. Gas assets are pretty stable. They're, you see there very little change, about $7.1 million of gas pilots to be paid this year. And then water and wastewater contribute for a total of $9 million between the two divisions. You can see we're up about $500,000 compared to last year. And then lastly, small but mighty fiber, $1,100 payment there for the fiber division this year. In total, these are up 2.7% compared to last year. All right, so who gets the money? City of Knoxville gets $22.8 million from KUB through the payment of these pilots. We pay them for each of our 5 divisions to the city. That's up about $1.5 million from last year. That $1.5 million is comprised of about $700,000 of new electric assets generating additional pilots, about $400,000 from electric margins generating additional pilots. The remainder would be the amounts from the water and wastewater divisions contributing to the city's increase. Once again, we mentioned earlier that Knox County decreased their tax rate. You'll see that. Pilots are down to the county by about $600,000 this year. They still receive $9.5 million from KUB. And then cumulatively, the outer taxing jurisdictions will receive about $1 million in pilots in total. One thing to note, you'll see some decreases in the outlying areas. Same thing that happened in Knox County, increasing property values, decreased tax rate, and you see the variance there as a result of that. All right, so we've gone through a lot, but what is before you today is Resolution 1469. This is actually a request to City Council to set for distribution as required by statute payments for the electric, gas, and fiber division totaling $24,307,800.
I'm open to a motion and second on Resolution 1469 on first and final reading. Commissioner Caballero, is there a second?
Second.
multiply seconded. All right, is there any discussion? Any questions from board members? Is there anyone here in the community who would like to speak to this resolution? Okay, very good. Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Askew.
Aye?
Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Adrian Simpson-Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small. Resolution 1469 has passed.
Thank you. All right, Resolution 1470 is now up for consideration. Mr. Bolus?
Yes, Commissioners, I'd like to introduce Brooke Sinclair, Director of Engineering, to discuss a resolution for condemnation. Brooke?
Thank you, Mr. Bolus. Commissioners, it's been a little while since we've come and talked about condemnation authority. Actually, it was December of 2019. So I thought I would just take a couple of minutes to go through the process of how easement acquisition works and when we have to condemn. Rare, but it does happen on our site. So when we're creating a design for utilities or rerouting utilities, we don't just do that work on paper. We'll go to the field, we walk all the possible routes. We're trying to look for a preferred route that focuses on things like reliability, resiliency, customer impact, and cost. After we choose that route, we'll actually identify all the property owners that could be impacted, and then we'll start having discussions with them. And we're looking for things like, here's what our work is going to be, here's what you're going to see, here's how we're going to impact you, and then we're getting information from them that's focused on what's your current use for this property, what's your future use for this property, take that information, put that back into our designs, come up with a final design, work with the customer to negotiate that easement and the compensability amount, sign it, and then we make the payment and we move forward with the work. On a rare occasion, we won't be able to make the, to just go through the standard process, and that's typically going to be in situations where maybe there's complicated inheritances with multiple heirs. It could be there's liens against the property, just other things that are there we would call sort of non-standard. So we'll go through the process of we're continuing to negotiate, but looking to pull all the information together in case we need to request condemnation authority. And that's really two things. We're looking at a third-party title search, and then we're looking at an appraisal. If the situation with the customer or property owner is that we just can't agree on the amount, we'll use that appraisal so that they understand here's what the value of your property is. Then we get the signed easement, we move forward with our work. Through all of this, and I think it's really key, just we have a tremendous amount of, we're touching base, we're negotiating, we're having discussions, we want to hear what they have to say so that we can move forward. But as timing becomes more of an issue on a project, maybe we have a contractor performing that work and we need to be able to move forward, we may have to seek authority from the board to move forward with condemnation. So we'll lastly kind of initiate the legal proceedings for what's called an order of possession, and there's legal folks in the room that have a lot more background in that, but really that just starts the ball rolling so that KUB can get the work done, but also compensate the customer fairly in the end. So we do have the downtown ballpark project that you've heard a lot about, and we are having to reroute a transmission, or you might hear us say a 69 kV line, in that area because the part of the proposed line is actually in, or part of the line is in the proposed outfield of the ballpark. So that's probably not going to work in the end. We had a total of 21 easements that we needed to acquire. Many of those were actually on governmental-owned properties as we selected the route, or as we provided proposed routes to the city of Knoxville. We worked really hard to stay on park properties, the Justice Center, just places we didn't have to impact a private citizen on, but there were a few that we did have to work easements with. We've gotten all of those easements from the private property owners signed and completed except one at 1600 Henrietta Avenue. And I'll just orient you to this map. So this is Harriet Tubman Street here. Up here is McCullough Avenue, and down about right there is the KCDC development that's occurring there. So the little green dot is where the pole will actually be. The red represents the 30-foot wide easement that we're requesting. This is a situation where, an easement is not taking the property, it's just using a portion of it. The transmission line will run north and south, they can still use the property, mow the property, all those things. They just can't put it like a building underneath the transmission line. That's what it means when we talk about an easement. And the reason we need 30 foot is for a transmission line. It allows us to trim the trees that we need to trim, go in and install the transmission line and deal with the overhang that comes with a larger 69 kV line. In this particular case, there's just some complicating factors. As I mentioned earlier, there's multiple heirs, and just working through the process of getting through that, it's going to take several more months, and so we have a deadline of end of February to finish this work up, and so we're just getting to that point. Now, we do expect to continue to negotiate with this property owner at 1600 Henrietta, and we will continue to negotiate with them. However, it's just a process. So we would even call this one like a friendly condemnation. They're okay with the pole location, they're okay with the easement, they're okay with the dollars. It's really just more of the legal process to get through dealing with multiple heirs and what all is going on this, what we would call kind of non-standard situation. So, Commissioners, I'd just like to ask for approval for Resolution 1470. It gives KUB the authority to condemn the property and the taking of utility easements on the parcel. It does allow us to continue to have discussions and negotiate, but it allows us to move forward with setting the pole and doing the work that's needed for the ballpark project. And it also, the Resolution 1470 also directs that the cost will be paid by the electric division. And with that, I'll ask for
Thank
questions.
you.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to, on Resolution 1470 on first and final reading.
So moved.
Commissioner Hamilton? Second? Commissioner Caballero, thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
So this won't be a surprise, but I'm always really, really, really hesitant when we talk about this. Brooke, I think your presentation was helpful. And as long as this is not a contentious issue with landowners and government entities and agencies taking their land against their will and using it for purposes against their will, as long as you put it, a friendly easement, a friendly process, then I'm okay with it. But I just want to go on record and say that, generally when we talk about these, I want to make sure that we've exhausted our possibilities. And generally there's some contention here, so it's good to know that it isn't contentious. And with that said, I could support this.
Commissioner Small, I was just going to add, my family had a transaction where we were trying to sell a piece of property that had multiple heirs, and I can attest to how long it takes it to work through the process. It is not a quick thing to do, so.
And I would simply add that there's a significant public interest in this. That's the question that I always ask because these are difficult, but does the greater good for the community outweigh the individual interest? And rarely does it, but in this case, it seems to be the fact. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, is there anyone from the board who would like to address this issue? Public, I'm sorry, the public, thank you. I identify so much with the public that, Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll?
And make a motion?
You have to get the item on the floor. You vote after discussion. Yeah.
Robert's rules, don't always understand them.
Always want to hear from the public before we would take a vote. So, all right, Mr. Coley.
Commissioner Askew.
Aye.
Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum. Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Resolution 1470 has passed.
All right, Mr. Bolus.
Yes, Commissioners, I want to recognize Mark Walker, Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, to give you an update on the recent sale of bonds. Mark?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. You may recall last spring, the board authorized us to issue new money bonds for both the electric division and the wastewater division to help fund both systems' capital budgets for the current fiscal year. We did sell the bonds on November the 30th, and I'm pleased to report today on the results of the sale. In total, we sold $89 million in new bonds. That includes $79 million for the electric system and approximately $10 million for the wastewater system. The bonds were sold via public competitive sale. And we actually, tomorrow is the official closing when we get all our money in tomorrow. But we signed documents today, and Chair Askew had the grand opportunity one more time to sign bond closing documents. So I know he was pleased with that. But anyway, so we do close tomorrow. The amount of cash that we're actually getting in is $91.6 million. That includes about $3.5 million in premiums that the underwriters will be paying on the bonds, in addition to the par value of the bonds itself, less about $800,000 or so in total issuance cost. And that's where we get the $91.6 million. I'll talk in a few more moments about the premiums on each of the respective issues and explain that. We did have quite a bit of interest in the bonds, more than I actually expected. We had 9 bidders for the electric bonds and 7 for the wastewater bonds. And we were pleased with the results on the true interest cost that we actually got on each series. It's a little bit higher than what we budgeted at 4%, but we budgeted that last spring, and as you well know, a lot has happened in the interest rate environment over that period of time. So the results that we received were actually quite a bit lower than what we were expecting when we went into the day of the sale, which that was a good thing. So on the electric bonds, $79 million par value of bonds, again, 9 bidders. The low-cost bidder was Barclays Capital at a rate of 4.072%. Now, their bid included about a $3.1 million premium on the bonds above and beyond the par value. That's just the structure of their bid. In exchange for that, the actual interest rates on the bonds, or what we call coupon rates, are a little bit higher. The weighted average coupon rate on the bonds is 4.32%. But you take all of that into consideration together to determine what your true interest cost is. And there's more actual debt service payments, but we're getting that $3.1 million up front. And so when you calculate all that, you come up with the true interest cost, and Barclays Capital was the low-cost bidder on that. So as far as the actual payback structure of the new $79 million in electric bonds, they will mature over a period of 30 years. The final maturity date will be July of 2052. The total interest over that period of time is going to be $63.8 million. Again, spread over a period of 30 years. It is, as you can see, except for the first year where it's just interest-only payments. After that, it is a true levelized payback structure, much like your home mortgage would be. It's the same amount, about $4.8 million each year, though the mix of principal and interest will change over time as more principal is paid down. So that is what the structure looks like. As far as every bond issue we have has call provisions in it that allow for early redemption in the event that we wanted to restructure or more commonly refinance the debt at lower interest rates. These bonds have a 10-year call, so they're callable by July 1st of 2032. And with the issuance of this debt, our total outstanding electric system bonds or debt is $370 million. So that's electric. On wastewater, $10 million in bonds. It's actually a little bit less than that. It's $9,995,000. And I'll talk in a moment about why we lowered it $5,000. You actually save on issuance cost more than what you're getting with the $5,000. It's relatively negligible amounts, but it makes sense to do that. We had 7 bidders in total. Raymond James and Associates was the low-cost bid at 4.067%, so roughly virtually the same as the electric, just a tad lower on that. Raymond James had a premium of $350,000, and offsetting that was a little bit higher interest rates, as I mentioned. In this case, the weighted average interest rate over the life of the bonds is 4.26%. And that's wastewater. Looking at the payback structure, again, it on a much lesser amount, but it really mirrors electric, being a levelized payback structure. Total interest over the 30 years of the bonds is about $7.8 million. These bonds, again, are 30-year bonds like electric, so they'll fully mature by April of 2052. They also have a 10-year call provision, just like electric does. And with as far as the total outstanding debt, it will now rise to $482 million, but we will be paying off. Our scheduled repayment of principal for this fiscal year doesn't occur until April 1st, so we'll be paying down $15 million in outstanding debt on April 1st of 2023. We'll end the fiscal year at $467 million. As you'll recall, we will be slowly trending down our level of wastewater debt over the course of the next 10 years. And then final slide is just to review with you the professional fees that we incurred. They're part of the total issuance cost for the $89 million in new money bonds. You see some familiar names up there. Our financial advisor is Cumberland Securities. Our bond counsel is Bass, Berry & Sims. The rating agencies are Moody's and Standard & Poor's. The total fees, once you add everything together, $321,000. That represents about 35 basis points of the par value of the bonds, which is quite competitive if you're looking at what others pay to their financial advisor and bond counsel and such deals. Rating agencies may be a different story. But anyway, in total, $321,000. And that's just a summary of the sale. We were a little bit over budget, but overall very pleased given current market conditions. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
The commissioners have any questions?
Remember we had a slide in a previous presentation that talks about our debt ratios. And how does this fall into that? What does this put us? As it gets us a little bit lower, I would assume, on the particularly electric.
Over time, actually on electric, that ratio will be trending up over the next few years as we issue, more electric debt to help fund the build out of the fiber network, and then it will begin to trend down over time, closer down. It'll peak in the mid 40% range, and then we'll trend down below 40% by the end of our long-range 10-year plan. That's what our projections have. On wastewater, it's going to be a sort of a steady trend down over time as we get, I guess the goal was to get below 50% by the end of the long-range plan on wastewater. Because remember, at one time, it was, in the mid 60% years ago on that. So we're making progress on that.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, Mr. Bolus.
Yes, at this time I'd like to introduce Ruby Mathai, the TVA Senior Manager of Energy Right for Business and Industry, to make a presentation. So Ruby, with her, while she's coming up to the podium, I want to also introduce some folks at TVA we work with every day. Robbie Ansari, he's the TVA Customer Relations Manager. He's been working with us for decades. It feels like I've known him forever. Katie Reevely, she is the TVA Customer Service Engineer. So we deal with her on a lot of our big projects and initiatives. And then Adam Borden, the TVA Energy Services Consultant for this area. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, TVA, for what you've been doing with us for many, many years and the partnership we've created. So thank you, Ruby.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, everyone. It's my honor to be here today on behalf of TVA to present Knoxville Utility Boards with multiple Energy Right Top Performer Awards for FY21. The accomplishments and success stories are highlighted in our highlights report and reflects what a team of partners who are strongly dedicated to a mission of service can achieve together. Thank you to our partners at KUB for making these valuable programs available to your customers. Today, KUB is being recognized as a top performer in 4 categories. First place home energy workshops for energy savings totaling 17,960 kilowatt hours. Third place in home uplift for energy savings totaling 291,237 kilowatt hours, and 98 families who had their homes uplifted in the valley that year. Fourth place in the DIY home energy assessments for energy savings totaling 112,375 kilowatt hours, and fifth place in the home energy evaluation for energy savings totaling 317,532 kilowatt hours and 557 participants. KUB has also been earned the prestigious North Star Award, which honors a local power company that has lowered the energy burden for underserved communities in the valley through service, products, programs, and monetary contributions. KUB has continued to distinguish themselves as a vital and indispensable TVA Energy Right Home Uplift partner. Their hands-on approach to program marketing and recruiting helped ensure that the diverse and deserving members of the local communities are included. All of these honors and awards demonstrate KUB's commitment to helping customers save energy and money in their daily lives. On behalf of TVA Energy Right and the team, congratulations on your tremendous accomplishment, and thank you for your enduring partnership and commitment to being a trusted energy advisor to your neighbors and communities. And I'd like to call Gabe and Jerry up. Oh, yeah. Well, I got two.
Let me say to Ruby and all your colleagues from TVA that we really appreciate our partnership with TVA. I know you guys take a lot of shots from various and sundry people in the community, but if they only knew you like we knew you, nobody would ever do anything but sing your praises. And so we really do appreciate all the aspects of our partnership with you. We're particularly pleased and grateful for your recognition with the North Star Award, because this board and our staff has set a priority to take care of the least of these for a long time, and we've done. We work very hard to try to take care of and give the same care to our poorest customers that we give to those who are resource rich. And so this recognition means an awful lot to us. So thank you so much for this and all the different ways we interact every year.
Commissioners, today we do our annual Employee Excellence Awards. And so I want to introduce Elba Marshall, our Director of Corporate Services and Diversity, for today's award presentation.
Thank you, Gabe. Commissioners, I'm pleased to be here today to present to the annual Employee Excellence Awards. As some of you all might recall, this program was suggested by former board member Bruce Anderson, and we implemented this back in 2014 as a way to recognize the accomplishments and hard work and commitment of our employees. Since this program started 9 years ago, we've recognized teams and individual employees for accomplishing a variety of things, complex construction projects, developing and initiating new initiatives that produced operational efficiencies, and at times even coming to the aid of the community. More recently, we have transitioned to recognizing these accomplishments in real time. There's a lot of desire on employees to have that opportunity to see these things recognized when they happen. And as an example of that, you all were able to attend the closure of the consent decree back in August, which was a huge accomplishment, long coming. We also, during large storm events, will recognize our employees who have spent 3, 4, 5 days working in all kinds of weather to recognize their hard work by doing a breakfast, or at times we've even gone as far as to provide T-shirts to those that were out doing that work. One program you may not have heard about that we also do is our Wellness Ambassador Luncheon. Is a way for us to recognize employees who promote healthy habits to our population to ensure that they are able to come to work and feel good. And we've seen tremendous progress in some instances from people becoming more fit, losing weight, being more mentally healthy when they're at work. And it's a wonderful way for us to recognize individuals in real time as these things are happening. But today I'm here to present an award for the individuals that have joined us today. And I want to tell you a little bit about what they have done. So earlier this spring, both Kyle Amsden and James Day were responding to a work order that had identified a higher than normal consumption at a customer's home. When they arrived, they went knocking on the door. They could see that the customer was inside, but the customer wasn't coming to the door. And so they spent some time there wanting to be able to identify what was causing this high consumption. They knocked several times. When the gentleman finally did come to the door, he knocked on the door and finally did open the door for them. It became pretty clear at that point in time that this individual was needing more assistance. In fact, they reached out and had some emergency responders come and stayed with the customer until the help arrived. It was an opportunity for them to really take care of this individual. Somebody who spent 4 years working in hospice, you never know what you might find in somebody's home, and you sometimes find instances where neighbors and maybe even relatives don't take the action that might be necessary for individuals to receive the help. And I'm very proud to call Kyle and James, our co-workers, who took the time to do this. I know in my experience, those interventions that have been provided has sometimes saved somebody's life. And in this case, I do think that that was a real possibility, and just really grateful for that. And with that, that is why Chair Askew has selected this as the Board Chair Award, and want to offer him the opportunity to make any comments at this time.
Sure. Kyle and James, I know I speak for all of my colleagues on the board in saying we are so proud of you. It's been a part of our culture for a long, long time that good enough is never good enough here. And what you did out there by staying with this customer, by recognizing, by having the humanity to recognize that there was a fellow human being in need, and by taking it upon yourselves to make sure that that person's needs were met above and beyond what the power needs might have been. So we're I chose this your actions that day for this award because you are exactly what we hope all of our employees represent while they're out there in the field. Our board is responsible for looking out for the ratepayers, and we're only as good at doing that as the people out in the field are able to carry out that kind of concern and that priority. And so, you know, your mamas and daddies must be mighty proud of you, because you're exactly the kind of people that I would hope my children would grow up to be. And so my hat's off to you, and we thank you for your service.
Well, I want to echo Chair Askew in saying thank you. I have the pleasure of working with a lot of great coworkers at KUB, and you exude and exemplify the things that we talk about a lot, but you prove it and do it every day. So thank you very much. Appreciate you all every day. And I have, like I said, the luxury of working with you every single day at KUB. And I get towards the clicker now for me. Throw it this way. Okay. We're doing all right. So I get to do the last presentation here. So I do want to share some good news. We received a national award, as it's become the norm, I will say, because we have hold ourselves to a high standard and expect a lot. But it's always nice to get recognized by your peers for something you're doing really well, and you'll really appreciate this presentation today. So the Center for Energy Workforce Development gave us the Impact Award. That particular group is a national, clicker here. It's a national nonprofit consortium made up of a lot of utility industry folks and a lot of agencies like APPA, AGA that get together and look across the entire country at what utilities are doing. They have a few awards they give out every year, and they gave out 4 awards. We were able to receive the Impact Award for our teamwork program. And what that award really says is you're doing things to develop the workforce of the future. You're going out in communities and really embracing that and helping build that pipeline of folks in the future. And so, as you all know, you all support teamwork a lot. A lot of you attend our events. We're passionate about it, and to be recognized for that program by a national organization really means a lot to us personally. As you will see, we were one of 5 utilities in the country: Alabama Power, ComEd, SMUD out in Sacramento, Omaha. And I will say those utilities are huge compared to us. ComEd has 4 million customers. Alabama Power has 1.5 million customers. So for us to be recognized with the size of those utilities and to get the recognition we have gotten, it speaks volumes to what we're doing, even as, quote, as small as Knoxville may appear. So thank you for your support in this program. We continue to grow it. As you know, teamwork is still expanding. And thanks to our folks like Tanisha and Leslie and Tiffany who helped drive that. It's great to see that thing, even through COVID, even through all the things we've had to go through the last few years, it still has an impact to our folks in our community. So that's the presentation today. The award, I want to put it down. I didn't want to break it. It's a beautiful award that we got. It's pretty. So thank you all again for your support, and thank you to all the employees who made this happen. So it's really great to hear that. So,
Gabe, for the last 6 months or so, I've been the interim CEO of the Knox Education Foundation, and I've become intimately familiar with the importance of giving pathways to our high school students to go into post-secondary educational experiences and ultimately into workforce. And so the TeenWorks program is particularly dear because, as you know, most people probably know, we have a really hard time keeping some of our students of color in particular home. They're very successful in other cities, and we want them to feel like they are home here, and there are opportunities for them to have wonderful careers right here in their hometown. And so this kind of effort to familiarize them with the opportunities that KUB offers to them once they're finished with their training, or in jobs that we will help them be trained in, is really critically important for our future as a city. So thank you for all of that you and your team do.
thank you very much.
All right, Commissioner Feinbaum, we have a report from the nominating committee.
Yes, thank you, Chair Askew. Every January, the board elects officers as required by the charter. The nominating committee met on Monday of this week and voted to nominate the following slate of officers for 2023. Chair will be Adrian Simpson Brown, Vice Chair Tybee Small, and Secretary Mark Walker. The election of officers will be conducted in January 2023 as required by the charter.
All right, very good. Congratulations to the nominees, and thank you for your willingness to serve. And Mark, as always, thank you.
He was voluntold.
He was voluntold again. Exactly. But I appreciate it, and I'll look forward to to hearing the results of this very contentious election in January. Are there any members of the public who signed up to speak with us today? All right. In that case, no one has 5 minutes to speak.
I want to jump in here real quick and surprise you with a resolution that's not on your agenda. Resolution 1471 will recognize you for your years of service, and I'm going to ask Bill Coley to read that resolution out loud.
It's my pleasure to present Resolution 1471, a resolution of the Knoxville Utilities Board honoring Jerry Askew, who is concluding service as a commissioner. Get comfortable. Whereas Jerry Askew became a member of this board in January 2016 and has now served faithfully for 7 years. And whereas Commissioner Askew's expertise in corporate and nonprofit leadership, as well as his background as the Archdeacon of the Episcopal Diocese of East Tennessee, have informed his tenure on the board and provided helpful guidance for the staff. And whereas Commissioner Askew has helped KUB manage the unprecedented circumstances of the COVID-19 global pandemic and its impact on customers, supporting programs to serve those facing hardships due to the pandemic. And whereas Commissioner Askew's commitment to assisting customers in need has been demonstrated through his support for programs like the COVID Utility Relief Effort Fund, Rounded Up, and home weatherization programs, which have served thousands of customers. And whereas Commissioner Askew has also demonstrated leadership by serving as the chair of the board for the past 2 years, and whereas as chair, Commissioner Askew helped lead the historic effort to create KUB's fiber division to provide municipal high-speed broadband services for KUB's customers, which will result in positive impacts on quality of life, economic growth, and student performance, especially for underserved and unserved communities and customers for many years to come. And whereas during his tenure as commissioner and as chair, KUB has made significant progress in its operations, its customer focus, its environmental stewardship, and its community impact, winning numerous awards and recognitions. And whereas during his tenure as commissioner, the board established a community advisory panel to seek input from customers about its programs and services, and to help better communicate important utility issues to the community. And whereas Commissioner Askew's engagement in the community extends beyond his tenure on the KUB board and is reflected through his service to countless nonprofit organizations, including the Episcopal School of Knoxville, the Meaningful Life Center and Family First Community Advisory Boards, the Johnson University Greater Knoxville Advisory Board, All Souls Foundation, and the Knoxville Leadership Foundation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Knoxville Utilities Board, Section 1, that this board hereby gratefully acknowledges and commends Jerry Askew for his dedicated service to KUB, its employees, customers, and our community. Section 2, that the board recognizes Commissioner Askew's meaningful and effective service and genuinely regrets that his time on the Board of Commissioners has concluded. And Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect from and after its passage, and that a copy shall be provided to Commissioner Askew, signed by the remaining members of the Board of Commissioners this 15th day of December 2022.
Thank you,
Jerry, before you speak, I have to say this, that I don't think anybody could have shepherded us through that fiber process like you did. That was probably one of the most important things that any of us will ever do as we serve on community boards, providing access to the internet for people across our service territory, particularly those who are historically underserved, and for people from our Black and brown communities. And the way you managed that, the way you led that process was a lesson in leadership for many of us. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you have done for our community, but particularly as we've served on this board together. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your stewardship. You have never made a decision that you didn't ask what's best for our community and what's best for our ratepayers. And I absolutely appreciate you. I absolutely am going to miss you on this board. And I just want to say a job well done, my friend. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What he said, that's that's what he said.
Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak against this resolution?
But first, we
Well,
need a motion and a second.
okay.
Second.
Are there members of the public that would like to speak?
Not just the public, but one more comment from a board member. I just wanted to say too how much I appreciate your perspective on things, Jerry, and we have gone through a number of things over the last couple of years, and I think you have been a calm, level-headed individual that has always spoke out at the right time and always seemingly, however you've done it, had the right thing to say at the right moment. And I have just really appreciated that. And I think your comments and your perspective are going to be sorely missed on the board.
I will second that. In that summer that we went through the charter, you speak from the heart each and every time that you speak, and it was from the heart that you spoke that summer. We were late on that meeting, and it allowed me to know a little something more about you, and your sharing of yourself is what I think is what drives your leadership is the servant leadership that we all model. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, let me just say that I have thoroughly enjoyed serving with all of my fellow commissioners, both those who are here today, those who are absent, and those who have served before. It's been a real privilege to serve on this board and to be with people who genuinely care about the ratepayers. That's what we're here for. We are the representatives of all the people out in the community who get our services. So thank you. I'll say to Gabe and your whole team, from the executive suite to the frontline workers, that my respect for you knows no bounds. And I have said many times, this is the most effective organization that I've had the privilege of working with. And so I have learned so very much. In general, I would say that this has been the most intellectually interesting job I've ever done. As I've said to you many times, I never knew I needed to know so much about poop-eating bugs. But I really I have found this to be such a wonderful intellectual challenge and opportunity. And so thank you for your patience as I've asked really ignorant questions. And then finally, I would say, people have asked me many times why I wear my clerical collar to these meetings. And I think that the work that you've allowed us collectively to do is among the most important ministries that I've ever done. I'm a deacon in the Episcopal Church, and the deacon's role is to be the prophetic voice of the poor. And most of my colleagues deal with the poor one person at a time. And it's good work, and I'm proud of my colleagues in the diaconate. What you've offered me the opportunity to do is to address the issues of the poor at a systemic level. And that's a rare gift. And so thank you all for being a part of the ministry I have a privilege to carry out every day. So that's way more than needed to be said, but I mean every word. So thank you. It's just been a privilege to work with you.
Thank you. Mr. Coley, can you please call the roll for the vote on Resolution 1471 on first and final reading?
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum. Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
And Commissioner Askew gets no vote. Motion,
Just
resolution passes
Just like at home.
unanimously.
Very well, thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any, let's see, I've already asked, there are no people who want to speak to us. I want to remind everybody that following the adjournment of this meeting, the board will have lunch across the hall, and that session is open for the public to observe. Any other business? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.